everybody, thank you so much for watching. It is so good to see you all again, and if you're new here, then a great big Mel's Yarniverse welcome to you. In today's video, I'm going to be reviewing some brand new yarn that's just arrived from Spotlight. So get nice and comfy, grab your latest whip, put your feet up, and let's check out these new yarns. So the new yarns we'll be looking at today was actually recommended to me by a lovely subscriber by the name of Bridget. Thank you so much, Bridget. Bridget's been supporting this channel since the very beginning, and I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. She recommended that I take a look at the new line of yarns coming out in Spotlight called Draper James. Now, the Draper James name is probably better well known as a brand of retail clothing by the American actress Reese Witherspoon, who for some reason has decided to launch a new range of yarns. Now, I took a bit of a look at the Spotlight website and I had a good look at the cotton, the wool, and the tweed. Now, I wasn't all that impressed by the tweed, but I was definitely intrigued by the cotton and the wool. So that's what we'll be having a closer look at today. Okay, well, let's get started. This is the Draper James Classic Cotton. It's a 50% acrylic, 50% cotton blend. You get 100 grams in the skein or ball, which gives you 160 meters or 175 yards. They recommend a 4.5 mil knitting needle and a 5.5 mil crochet hook, and it states it's a medium 4 weight yarn. Now, it's actually advertised as a 10-ply cotton, which should be quite a thick cotton. So I'm going to do a couple of comparisons to some other cotton brands just to have a look at the size and the weight of the yarn. So the first yarn I'm going to compare this to is the Abbey Road Kung Fu cotton. Both are 100-gram balls or skeins. The Abbey Road is 100% cotton as opposed to the Draper James being the 50-50 blend. Both cottons recommend a 5.5 mil hook and both are 10-ply yarns. So let's just do a quick comparison. Let's grab the end out here and have a look at the same thickness. See how we go. So in terms of thickness, these two are very similar. You can see that in the size of the yarn, there's not much difference there. And you can also see that the weave in both of the yarns is quite loose. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a problem. Now, I have issues crocheting with the Kung Fu cotton yarn. It's too loose for me. It splits a lot and it really gets caught on my crochet hook. No matter what brand of hook I use, I have the same issue every single time, which is intriguing to me because when the Kung Fu cotton first became available, it was actually a really good quality and it was quite lovely to work with. Whereas now the stitch definition just isn't there and it splits terribly. So I don't know if they changed something about the processing or the manufacturing of the yarn. But for me personally, I struggle a lot with Kung Fu cotton and I've stopped buying it because I just can't use it. But in terms of the size and the thickness and the weight of the yarn, that's what I'm looking at and what I'm comparing at the moment. So we can see that both of them are the ply or the weave in the yarn is quite loose. You can see that the Draper James is coming apart there already. Kung Fu cotton comes apart quite easily as well. You can see the multiple strands in there, and same again with the Draper James. So these two seem to be pretty on point. Let's bring in another yarn to have a look at. So I'll just put the Kung Fu cotton over here for a second. This is a Motivera Shadow in the 8-ply, so it definitely will be thinner than the other two. This is also a cotton and acrylic blend. So with these two, I just want to compare the feel, the softness, and the quality difference. So obviously the Motivera should feel a little rougher because it has a higher percentage of cotton and less acrylic than the Draper James. But in terms of feel, they're actually pretty similar. There's not too much difference there. I'm just going to check again the weight or the thickness of the yarn if I can find an end on the Motivera. Let's just grab one of these strands here. Now, obviously the Motivera should be thinner because it's an 8 ply and not a 10 ply. So let's have a look at that. And you can see the Motivera is definitely thinner. But look at the weave difference. Look at the ply, like the twist in the yarn. The Motivera is much more dense. It's much thicker, like it's in terms of the weave, it's very solid, whereas the Draper James is quite loose. You can see that that's coming apart right there. Whereas if we look at the end of the Motivera, it's still quite solid, like it's very, very thickly woven together, which I really like. It means it doesn't split as much on your crochet hook. So in terms of that, the weave on the Draper James is quite loose. So I'm just going to compare one more. So this is the Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton, which I think is a little bit unfair to compare because we all know I love the Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton. So, but I am going to check it just in terms of quality, thickness, and the general feel to it. So here's the end of the Bendigo. Now this cotton from Bendigo is an 8 ply, not a 10 ply. So again, it will be thinner, but I just want to look at the weave on both of them as well. The Bendigo, it does actually have quite a nice loose weave, but it's not so loose that it becomes stuck on your hook. It feels like the twist in that ply there is just very natural. There's something about the way it's twisted around its strands that just seems to work really well for Bendigo. So I'm wondering if they've got a particular twist that they use that just happens to work, and maybe the Draper James is using a different design or a different style of twist. Not sure. I need to do a bit more research on that. But if you have any information about it, by all means, let me know because I'd love to hear it. Going back to the yarns, if we take the weave out of the equation, the Draper James feels just as soft as the Bendigo does. And remembering the Bendigo is 100% cotton, and this is a cotton and acrylic blend. So the Draper James should feel a lot softer. You know, there's not too much difference. The Bendigo has that unmistakable cotton feel, but it's never rough. It never has a rough texture. And the Draper James is very, very soft. It's got a lovely feel to it. I feel like, I'll just move the Bendigo over. I feel like this is going to be lovely to work with as long as the weave isn't too terribly loose and too splitty. That's my only concern at this stage. So the Draper James range, which is really difficult to say, by the way, comes in a range of 18 different colours, which ranges from bright colours right through to lovely pastels. Now, I ordered 3 different colours. We can see that this one here is the cream. This one in particular is called the Almond Blossom, which is a lovely sort of baby pink or dusty rose colour. It's really lovely. And then the other one I ordered was the Chambray Blue. I thought those 3 colours would go together quite well in a lovely little project. I thought that was really pretty. So let's take a closer look at the blue and the pink, or the Almond Blossom and the Chambray Blue. There's some lovely, lovely dye work in here. It's a very even and consistent colour. It looks lovely. I can see here there's a bit of a bleed through there. Not sure what happened there. Hopefully it's just a bit of a stain or something and that might wash out. Who knows? But across the different colourways, it looks very even and consistent. I'm not seeing any patches where there's any missing or bleached colour coming through. There's no darker points shining through or anything like that. It all looks fairly even and really pretty. And I feel like these will work up really beautifully. But more importantly, how do they work up? Okay, let's start with a magic ring and see how we go. Now, I'm using a 5mm rather than the recommended 5.5 because I just feel that the 5.5 will be way too big. So drop down to a 5 and let's see how that goes. Okay, magic rings all done. So I'm just going to work up a bandana. Nice and simple project. Works up quite quickly. And I've made them so far in a range of different cottons. So I can do, yeah, we're getting a bit stuck there. Do a nice comparison after. Yeah, the weave is very loose. Let's see. Keep going. So it's got a lovely feel on the hook, I will say. It's quite smooth. Just get rid of this band, make that a bit easier. There we go. Yeah, the weave is certainly very loose, which can be very problematic. So I'm not really liking the stitch definition either, to be honest. It's quite muddled. All right, let's keep going. All right, so it's very smooth on the hook. It does have a lovely smooth feel. It's quite easily gliding along the surface of that hook. No real problems there. For all my worries about it being a loose weave and getting caught, it seems to be working up okay. So far, I'm not having too many issues. It hasn't gotten caught yet or anything, so that's not bad. No knots or anything yet. It's not getting stuck on the hook. It's got a lovely glide to it. Again, it's not splitting like I thought it would, which is a good sign because I thought that was going to be really quite annoying actually. But so far, it's not doing too badly. Let's see how we go getting into here. Now this is going to be a problem. I go through the back and then turn it over. Let's see. Okay. It's not too bad. I feel like I'm having to concentrate an awful lot because of that loose weave. So I'm really having to watch where all of my stitches are going. Mm. So that's what that's looking like so far. I'll do another round just out of curiosity. It's an intriguing yarn. It's very smooth. Again, no knots or anything. There's nothing getting stuck. It's not making any weird sounds or squeaking or anything on the hook. It's quite light to work with. It's quite a light yarn. Again, no issues with it getting caught or anything like that. I feel like that with that weave, it should be more of an issue than it is. So I'm actually quite impressed. I thought I would be struggling a lot more with the yarn splitting. I would make sure that I would be working with a good quality light and also a good quality hook. I feel like maybe with a cheaper hook or one that you're not as comfortable working with, I feel like that might be an issue. I feel like some of the difference here is the fact that the clover is such a smooth hook that it's gliding through the yarn anyway. I would like to put that to the test though and switch to a different hook just to see if I'm still having any issues or if it's still quite as smooth. Okay. Once again, getting into the stitch. Nope, that's okay. So I'm much more impressed with it than I thought I would be. I genuinely thought I would have a huge issue with that loose weave. All right, give me 2 seconds. This is what we're looking like at the moment. It's got quite a nice feel to it. It's very soft. Really loving that feel. I'm just going to switch crochet hooks and see how I go with a different hook. I'm just concerned that maybe the clover is doing all the work here because it's such a smooth hook. So let's try a different hook. I might actually just grab a spotlight hook and see how that goes. So I'll be back in a couple of seconds and we'll see how we go. Okay, so this hook is just a Spotlight brand Cozy Grip crochet hook. There's nothing special about it. It's got a slightly ergonomic handle, and that's about it. So I just want to see how this yarn goes with a different hook. So I'm putting the clover aside, and let's keep going with a different hook. See if we have any issues with this one. Okay. Already it's not as smooth. So let's see. And this is a hook. This particular hook was the one that convinced me to try a clover hook because I initially was learning on arrow hooks. The arrows are kind of like boy hooks for anybody overseas that doesn't have arrow brands. Boys and arrows are kind of similar. They've got that aluminium, just straight style hook without a handle attached. And I really enjoyed learning on those. But I wanted to try the difference of an ergonomic hook and see what the difference was and, does it actually make a difference? So then I bought these from Spotlight. You can see how grubby it is, so it doesn't stay clean for very long. But I tried an ergonomic hook, so that shape seemed to fit really well in my hand and made making the stitches a lot easier for me. So once I learnt that an ergonomic hook better suited my style, I looked at the different versions of ergonomic hooks that existed and found out about clovers, and then away I went. So up until I had my clovers, I was using these Spotlight hooks for almost a year, I think, and they got me through, and I was able to use those quite well. And I just decided that maybe I needed a bit of an upgrade to see if there really was a difference between, say, a Spotlight brand hook and a big name brand like Clover. And yeah, once I tried those, I didn't really look back. So I don't know if you've noticed, but I've slowed down my crocheting with this hook. It is getting caught. So that's interesting because before I was quite happily gliding through the yarn with no issues, and now it's getting stuck. So, and this is a hook I've used a lot. It's very familiar to me, and I've used it with a lot of projects. I'm actually reusing this hook because I'm trying to finish a project I started with this hook, and I knew that if I changed hooks mid-project, that would not be a good idea. So I had to come back to this hook after using clovers for a while, and it wasn't such a bad transition for me. It was quite smooth. I thought I'd have a lot of problems. Every now and again, it might catch on something just because it doesn't have that same glide that a clover does. But I wasn't having too much trouble. Whereas with this particular project, I'm getting caught quite a bit. But I am noticing it. Oh, I was just going to say, it's not splitting yet. It hasn't split the yarn yet. So it's actually, the yarn itself is holding up much better than I thought it would, particularly with a hook like this that can sometimes get caught. So no split in the yarn. I thought there'd be little strands and fibers sort of sticking out left, right, and center, but at the moment, that's not happening. Okay, this is very interesting. It's a lovely feel, this yarn. It has a lovely soft feel to it. That acrylic is just helping it sit beautifully around my fingers and my hand. And the feel of the actual project itself, the bandana, is quite soft. It's quite a lovely feel. But yeah, in terms of the workability, it's very hard to describe because it feels like it should be really difficult to work with. And it's surprisingly easy. So once again, let's see if I can get into that top of that chain. It's always going to be difficult. I can get under the back bump and then just twist it back around so that the top of the stitch is on top again. Pull that through. Okay, so it's not too bad. Again, that loose weave looks a bit looks like it's going to be more of an issue than it is, I have to say. Okay, so after a round with a completely different hook, this is what it's looking like. It's very, very soft. That feel is very soft. Has a lovely feel to it. It really does. That acrylic cotton blend is just lovely. Lovely to feel. It's very smooth, very soft. Get rid of that hook for a second. Let's just look at the stitch definition. It's not too bad. Not quite as clear as I would like. It gets a little bit lost, but it's not too bad. It's not too bad. Let me just grab, okay. So this is a Bendigo Woolen Mills cotton. Let's turn it around the right way. So in terms of stitch definition, you can see that it's quite clear, quite easy to see in the Bendigo Woolen Mills. Again, this is an 8-ply 100% cotton though, so it probably isn't quite a fair comparison. Whereas this is the 10-ply. I would have thought that the acrylic would make the stitch definition a little easier, but I guess it could also make it fuzzier too, couldn't it, being an acrylic? I don't know. What do you think, guys? It's an interesting look, isn't it? Very soft though, very soft. So I thought I might just switch colours just in case there was any differences between the colourways or the dyes to see if maybe the feel of the yarn was different or there were any issues between the different colours. But so far, the feel is still the same. I was just thinking actually, this would make a lovely yarn for baby blankets and baby projects. Because of it being a cotton and acrylic blend, it would wash up really well and the cotton would be very breathable. The feel is really soft. So things like baby blankets, booties, anything you can think of that you could make for kids, little baby beanies, maybe even some rompers and little day sets and things like that would actually work up beautifully. And I keep thinking baby blankets in particular would work up really nicely using this yarn. I just thought I would share that with you. So far, not having any issues between the colours. I haven't experienced any knots or any issues with either of them so far. So that's a good sign. But I just feel like the overall feel of this yarn is perfect for baby blankets. It's very soft, very fine, and I feel like baby blankets would work up lovely, just lovely in this. Be perfect for those sorts of projects. Where am I up to? I'm doing my corner. Can I have some more yarn, please, Mr. James? Thank you. You can see the color combinations are working quite well. So that's the cream and the chambray blue. They work together really nicely. So far, not having any issues at all. This is working up really nicely. I genuinely thought I would have more problems than I'm having, so I'm really relieved about that. So far, this is working up beautifully. I'm really enjoying working with it. I genuinely thought there would be more problems than there have been. I haven't had any issues working with it at all. Loving the color combination. Let's look at that drape. It's quite nice. It's quite lovely and flexible. It's not stiff. It's not as flexible as some of the other bandanas I've made, but it is quite a lovely feel to it. Just going to do the same thing. So that's with the 100% cotton. You can see it's quite floppy and the drape is quite lovely on that. But again, that's a thinner ply and also just 100% cotton. So probably not fair to compare it to a cotton acrylic blend. But so far that's working up beautifully and I'm quite happy with it. And the feel, it's very soft, very soft. I keep coming back to baby blankets, but I genuinely believe it would work up lovely. It would just be a lovely feel and it's so smooth. It's a really smooth feel to it. It's got a lovely, it's very hard to describe actually because it's so smooth even though it's a cotton. So that acrylic is really doing a lot of work here and it's working up really well. I'm really quite happy with it. So I'll keep going with this bandana and I'll get back to you once it's done and I'll share my final thoughts with you. So far it's going pretty well. Okay, so I finished my bandana and here it is. I'm really happy with that. I think that turned out beautifully. Look at that. I love it, but let's take a closer look. Okay. So as you can see from the end result, it all looks really good. I'm really happy with it. The actual finish on the bandana is really quite soft. It's really lovely. I love the fact that the cotton is helping the yarn to keep its shape. It stays in shape beautifully, but then the acrylic just adds that extra level of softness. I keep saying that baby blankets would work up beautifully in this yarn, and I stand by that. It's actually very, very, very soft. Can't get over it really. But also other things. So you think of things like baby booties, beanies, a romper set, all those sorts of things would work up really lovely with this yarn. But also practical things like bags and dishcloths, bandanas, all those sorts of things. I really feel like this yarn would work up beautifully for any of those. I might try some baby booties or just a small little project next to see what they look like. But really happy with the end result. And you can see that I used all 3 colours. I wanted to do that because sometimes there can be inconsistencies between the different colours and the dye lots. So far, I haven't had any issues though. There were no splitting, there were no knots, there were no gaps in the dye where it was inconsistent or stained. So far, the cotton has worked up beautifully. I should say cotton blend has worked up beautifully. And if you were to ask me if I'd be happy to work with it again, I'd say absolutely. I'm much more impressed with it than I thought I would be. I went into this thinking, oh no, this is going to be a nightmare. It's going to snag all the time. It's going to split. It's going to have a rough texture. But honestly, it's worked up much better than I thought. So now I'm really curious about the wool. So better make a swatch with that next, I think. Okay, so this is the Draper James Cozy Wool. So let's take a closer look at it. Let's pop those over there. Let's have a look. So you get a 100-gram ball or skein, which gives you 142 yards or 130 meters. This is a 60% superwash merino wool and 40% acrylic blend, which is pretty interesting because most wool and acrylic blends are normally more acrylic than wool. There's normally the opposite. It would be 60% acrylic or 70% acrylic with only a little bit of wool. So the fact that they've gone the opposite way is really impressive. It's not a rough texture at all. It's quite soft. Uh, yeah, it looks pretty good. It's got quite a thick weave on it, but let's take a look at the label. They're recommending a 5.5 mil knitting needle or a 6.5 mil hook, which by the look of that would be way too big, I think. But let's keep going. They're saying it's a medium 4-weight yarn, which in the States would be a worsted or a light worsted weight, probably closer to a worsted. And here in Australia, that would be normally around a 10 ply. So let's see what else they have on here. They've got the care instructions there. This particular colorway is called Lion's Blue, but as you can see, hopefully on camera, it's actually more of a tealy green. It's quite a lovely shade, actually. I really like it. So I bought 3 skeins thinking that maybe a nice scarf would work up beautifully. That's the kind of project I had in mind. But having said that, I had that in mind because the description on the Spotlight website says this is a 12-ply yarn. Now, let me just show you what a standard 12-ply normally looks like in Australia. So we'll just move these out of the way. So this is a 12-ply wool or wool and acrylic blend. And we can see, I'm just trying to find the ends and they're not happening. So we'll just grab one of these. You can see that's how thick this yarn is. So probably slightly smaller than a worsted, maybe a light worsted for Americans. This would be about a 10, about a 10 ply for an Australian. Okay, but it's being advertised as a 12 ply. Now, 12 ply for some of us Aussies would be a chunky style or chunky weight yarn. So this is a 12 ply chunky acrylic, and you can see the difference in the thickness between the 2 yarns. So you can understand why Australians get very confused about yarn weights, particularly since we talk all about ply. We're all about the number of ply a yarn is. And that basically tells us what weight or how thick the yarn should be. So when we get labels that say 12, 14 ply, we're thinking something chunky and thick. But that's not always the case. So again, this Draper James is advertised as a 12 ply. So of course I was expecting something a lot thicker and a lot heavier. I thought a nice chunky scarf would work up really well. And now I'm sort of second guessing myself. It may still work up beautifully. I'm sure it will still look lovely, but it will be a lot smaller than I was expecting. So I'm just going to have a quick look at a 10 ply. So this is the Four Seasons Spot Saver. 10 ply 100% acrylic. We can get this from Spotlight. This is pretty much Spotlight's version of the Red Heart Super Saver yarn that you can get in the States. So this is a 10 ply. Let me just have a look at that in comparison in terms of thickness. Sorry, I've got fluff all over it. That looks much closer than the 12 ply did. The 10 ply still looks a little thicker though. And I'm not sure if that's because it's 100% acrylic, so it's a little fluffier. Maybe that's the issue. So just as a comparison. Now I also have an 8 ply from Bendigo Woolen Mills here as well. So let's just have a quick look at that as well. Yeah, see, even the 8 ply from Bendigo is as thick, almost thicker than the Draper James. So not that that's a negative thing, but I'm just making you aware of the fact that it's advertised as a 12 ply, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a chunky or a thick yarn. So just letting you know that in advance in case you're interested in purchasing any. All right, let's see how it works out. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, it recommends a 6.5 mil hook, but I think that would be a ridiculously large size to go with. So if I can find an end to this ball, well, there we go. So I think I might start with a 5 mil. That's a 5.5. That's the I. That's the H 5 mil hook. So I'm going to start with a 5 because I feel like 6.5. I don't have a 6.5 here. I've got a 6. And even that looks way too big. Like, look at that. That's way too big, in my opinion. Let's go down to a 5.5. 5.5 looks like it would be okay. I think a 5.5 would work quite well. And a 5. Yeah, I think a 5 would be even better. It'd probably be smaller. Just out of curiosity, let's go with a 5.5 mil. So this is a 5.5 or an I-sized hook. And they're recommending, once again, a 6.5, which is just way too big. I mean, I guess if you're somebody with a really tight tension and you need to loosen up the work or you want some extra drape and some space in the work, maybe a 6.5. But from what I'm seeing, I think a 6.5 would be way too big. So I'm dropping down to a 5.5 and could probably even go to a 5, but I'm going to stay with the 5.5 and just work up a quick swatch. So let's see how we go. So it's quite a smooth, quite a soft blend. Considering it's mostly wool, it's actually quite a lovely feel. It's got a lovely texture to it. You can see that the weave on it is quite tight. So the ply where they've twisted the 12 different strands together is really quite tight. And I really like that. It's absolutely the opposite to the cotton, which was very loosely woven. This is very tightly woven. It's quite a nice feel. So I'm really interested to see how this works up. It's got a bit of stretch to it too, a bit of give. So that's interesting too. All right, let's see how we go. I'm not working up anything in particular. I'm just going to maybe do a foundation DC row and just see how that looks. Grab that through there. Oh, I've done my first chain too tight. No! Come on, hook. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's quite smooth. It's working really well with the hook. Again, it's probably not fair to use a clover, really, is it? Because a clover kind of works with everything. I haven't found a yarn yet that the clover doesn't work with. But I just want to, I might try it with another hook, maybe an inline hook, and just see what that looks like. It's got a lovely feel to it. No issues so far. Not having any issues with the wool splitting or anything. Okay. Let's just have a quick look at that. So far that's working up really nicely. It's got a really nice feel to it. The stitches are really quite uniform. Stitch definition's lovely. It almost feels like it's got a bit of a sheen to it. I'm not sure if that's showing up on camera, but it's got a lovely look to it. All right, I'll keep working on this swatch. I'll just work up a couple of rows and we'll take a closer look at it when I get back to you. Ooh. Okay, so I've finished my little swatch here. I did a couple of different stitches. I started with a foundation double crochet row. I did a row of half double crochet and then half double in the third loop just to give us that little ridge there. And I am really happy with how this turned out. That stitch definition is just beautiful. The yarn itself is really smooth. I had no issues at all with frogging the yarn, with working with it. It didn't snag. It's really smooth yarn to work with. Really happy with it. Stitch definition's just lovely. It's a really smooth yarn to work with. I'm not sure if you can see that sort of sheen that I'm talking about. It's just lovely. It's a really beautiful yarn to work with. It's not the softest yarn in terms of, acrylic can be really, really soft, but this is just beautiful. It's a really lovely blend of wool and acrylic. So the warmth's gonna be there with that wool content, but the acrylic's keeping it nice and soft without overpowering it. There's no really fluffy halo on it like a normal acrylic would have. Um, it's lovely. It doesn't look like it would pill very much. So far, I am really impressed. This is really lovely to work with. Again, I would recommend the 5.5 mil. That was just perfect. I really do feel that a 6.5 is way too big, way too big. I'd be interested to see it in a 5 mil as well, but that's just lovely. I'm really happy with that. I can't wait to get started on a new project with it. What do you think, guys? Does it look okay? So there you have it, guys. Wow, what an impressive yarn. I have to say, I was not looking forward to this. I was going into it thinking that with such a loose weave on the cotton, I was going to struggle. I thought it was going to snag and it was going to get caught in everything and it was going to be another nightmare cotton that I would have to work with. And you know what? I am very happy to say I am ecstatic that it worked out as well as it did. It looks great. And I am so thrilled with my little bandana. It turned out beautifully. If you're interested, this pattern is for sale over on Ravelry, Etsy, and Buy Me a Coffee, just so you know. Look at me being all professional. So there's my bandana, and I am really happy with it. I think it worked out beautifully and much better than I was expecting. The cotton is just lovely. And then one of the biggest surprises, that wool and acrylic blend. Oh, it's just lovely. Really, really lovely to work with. It's been a beautiful experience playing with this yarn. I can't wait to get started on a couple of big projects, maybe a cowl perhaps. Who knows? Or a scarf. There's so many possibilities. This wool is just lovely. I would have no issues using this for wearables. It would be a cardigan would be absolutely beautiful. It would be so warm and so soft. It's just lovely. I really do hope that Draper James do release some more colorways. I'm hoping for some variegateds, maybe some beautiful ombres that transition through from a lighter to a darker shade. That would be beautiful. But at 3 for $10, that's the introductory price at Spotlight for VIPs, and anyone can be a VIP. So if you're not already a member or a VIP at Spotlight, definitely do that because you save a fortune being a VIP there. So the introductory price, as I said, is 3 balls for $10, and that applies across the whole range, whether it's the cotton or the wool, and also the tweed. I'm now very curious about whether or not I should have gotten some of that. I just wasn't impressed with the look of it, the style of it. That's not a true tweed. It's actually more of a yarn with some slubby bits. So slubby is like little bulges or thick chunks in the middle of the yarn. So it's not a smooth yarn. There are textured bits in it, which I don't mind if it works aesthetically with the yarn. For me, though, it didn't quite look as impressive as I thought. Having said that, though, I would like to actually feel it. I'd like to check the texture of it before I make a final decision. Maybe I needed to put in another order with Spotlight. More yarn. Ooh. No, I'm not buying any more yarn. I've got the Australian Sheep and Wool show coming up in like 2 or 3 weeks. Oh, goodness me, that's going to be huge. Now, if you haven't heard about the Australian Sheep and Wool Show, do yourself a favour, jump on the website. It is literally the biggest wool experience in the Southern Hemisphere. It is huge. There is going to be sheep and wool and yarn and muster dogs, little puppies running around chasing all the sheepies. It's going to be beautiful and I cannot wait. It's going to be huge. There's going to be so much yarn there, and that's coming up in 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm really looking forward to that, and I really need to stop buying yarn now. Otherwise, I'll get there and be broke, and that would be a nightmare. Oh, that would be a tragedy. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend with me. I really appreciate it. I hope this review was helpful. Let me know if you're sitting there thinking, maybe I need to get my hands on some of this Draper James. Maybe this impressed you as much as it did me, or maybe you're sitting there thinking, you know what, it's probably not worth it. Up to you. Let me know your thoughts either way. What would you make with these yarns if you had them at your disposal? What do you think? Do you think maybe some scarves or cowls, or maybe some bags, maybe some dishcloths, maybe some more bandanas? Let me know your thoughts because you know I love to hear them. Take care of each other and definitely take care of yourself because you absolutely do deserve it. All right, guys, take care and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.